Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. But before we get to the show and before I introduce our guests, I have something to mention that happened yesterday. Of course, all of you know what happened at the YouTube channel, at the YouTube company yesterday, and it brought me quite a bit of concern. I mean, the person who actually effected the violence out there had an interesting story to tell. She was a YouTuber. She was a person who made her living off of YouTube quite well, apparently. She did quite a bit of onlining, and what has happened is here we have one company. And first of all, before I even start about this, we should never resort to violence for anything. The way we solve problems in this country is through dialogue and through effecting change. I need to say that first of all, forcefully, that we should not invoke violence. But however, with people's unstable minds right now, what is occurring in this country with income inequality and wealth disparity, when we have a corporate system that has full control, that has the ability and has the complete control of individuals' well-being, individuals' personal economies, this will be more the norm than one believes. So what we have to work on in this country, more so what we're going to talk about on dialogue, is really ensuring that we have a state, a country, where we have equity. We're not saying we want equal outcomes. We have to have equal access to success without any particular one having any domineering in that effect. Secondly, I want to remind anybody that's listening right now that the first thing that we need you to do is to get on Facebook and share these programs. We have to defeat the algorithm that is currently in effect. Right, Debilyn? The algorithm that is trying to tear down on people's ability to see as they should. So please, folks, if you're just getting in, we're going to get several hundreds at a time, several thousands at a time. What we need you to do is immediately share. That way we can put it through the system. But anyhow, folks, we are going to have a wonderful show today. We are going to talk about dialogue. We are going to talk about a great piece that somebody special from the Coffee Party and other organizations have written. We also have on the phone Pearce Godwin, who is with the Listening First project. But first of all, let's get started. Debilyn Molineaux, USA, Coffee Party USA's Debilyn Molineaux will discuss today National Week of Conversation. But most importantly, we are going to start with a special paper that she wrote, Why Chaos Could Be Just What We Need Right Now. There's a lot occurring in America right now. We will only solve these problems with a constructive dialogue with people we do not necessarily agree with. Of course, it is also imperative that we understand the real state that the country is in and what its people are experiencing. Debilyn Molineaux, the past president of Coffee Party USA, wrote an excellent article titled Why Chaos Could Be Just What We Need Right Now. She exposes the reality of a people in disarray, a people standing, what I like to say, people standing on jello. I mean, people feel like they're walking on water, they're walking on jello, they're walking on instability. And she addresses that chaos very well. When I saw the piece, she didn't tell me about the piece or anything. You know, it just kind of popped up in the feed, in LinkedIn feed. And I'm like, wow, that seems like an interesting title for an article. Went ahead and read the article, and it blew me away. I said, that's it. She interpreted it just perfectly. So folks, stick with me. Share the page. It's important right now. Now, Pearce Godwin. Forgive me. Pearce Godwin, founder of Listen First Project. Did I get that right? Will join us later to discuss.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm glad that I got that right this time, Pearce. Later to discuss how the National Week of Conversation will help us on the necessary journey to what I call political redemption. But anyhow, Debilyn Molineaux, this is the third time that you're on Politics Done Right. Second time on Politics Done Right Daily. How are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing great, and it's just such a pleasure to be back with you, Egberto.
Absolutely. So now, as I told the audience before, when I got into seeing that article, it really blew me away because you hit it on the money, and I want to kind of deconstruct that article because I think it is important for people to know that that there's a reason for what we're going through right now, and not only is there a reason for what we're going through right now, and not only does it necessarily have precedence, but it just may be the path to the necessary change. So let's go ahead and start. I mean, I love the way that you put it. You said the way she starts the article, and folks, this turned out to be what I call, I write all my blogs of the week. Well, this week she made it easy for this one because I didn't have to write it. I just copied her stuff. You know what I mean? And this,
I'll send you a bill.
You'll send me a bill? Ouch. Well, I plagiarized her stuff. I didn't copy it. So she can't send me a bill if it's plagiarized because we'd have to go to court first. Anyhow, she starts, I seek and thrive on hope. And if you know Debilyn, that's what she does. She seeks and thrives on hope. But currently I see chaos throughout our society. At every level, this leaves me feeling anxious and fearful. How anxious and fearful are you really, Debilyn?
Less so when I look for silver linings. But if I just look at the chaos and watch the news, I get pretty anxious, and it leads to some sleepless nights.
Now, you asked your reader, have you felt this as well, or are you more optimistic? I was one of your readers, and I don't feel fearful. I feel optimistic. That is the reason I do what I do, and I know that you feel optimistic as well because that's the reason you do what you do. And I think in what we're doing here today and what you're doing with the different organizations, being a founder of the Bridge Alliance, being still with the Living Room Conversations, that tells me that you're optimistic. So before we go into the core of this document or your article, tell me how these organizations that you work with makes you optimistic, and how do you intend to use these organizations to indulge on optimistic onto the body politic, the rest of America?
I would say invite might be the right word.
Better word, yes.
We invite people to look at an optimistic outlook. One of the things that my work personally talking about, like, why am I here on this planet? I'm here because our social agreements are breaking down, and it's time to renegotiate. Like, how do we want to treat each other going to the middle of the 21st century? And my solution really is to sit down and negotiate it on a conscious level. Culturally, we have to decide what's going to be a fair society that we all want to share. No man, no woman is an island, and that's part of the challenge we have today, is that there's a lot of people who feel isolated and alone. And without input from all of us, we will not know or make a decision or agree on what we want, how we want to be together in community. So the work that I do with Coffee Party and Living Room Conversations and now Bridge Alliance is working on this kind of micro to macro level scale, of being able to look at what's happening in small individual groups and communities and help build into this kind of formula, if you know, a part of chaos, which we're going to talk about a little bit. Build in an element of fractal geometry so that we can actually take...
Explain that.
So fractals appear without nature. It's where something happens. So for instance, a beehive is a fractal geometric shape. The bees say, okay, I want to make some honey here, and they build up their little... I forget the six-sided figure, I forget what they're called.
Right.
And they replicate it over and over and over again.
Hexagonal.
When a tree is growing up, it will build a branch out in one direction, and then at a consistently proportional level, build an opposing branch out the other side. These are all like examples of natural fractal geometry. We as human beings are part of nature. There is a fractal geometry with how things go viral, with how we decide what's a fad or not a fad, or how we communicate in relationships. And so the living conversations model that I use is micro conversation. It's six people at a time. But if we get that replicated in a fractal way across the country, we're actually going to have better relationships with each other. And Bridge Alliance is working with 85 organizations who are doing some element of improving our country and having a better political system and a government that responds to its citizens.
So, as I understand it, then the fact that you're working towards getting folks talking to each other proves, in effect, that we are optimistic in that talking will not necessarily solve the problems, would at least lead us to believe that we can make some progress on these problems.
Let me. People say, I don't want to talk about it, I just want to do something.
Right.
Talking is doing something. It is the first step in action. And a lot of situations that I've seen and experienced, and I think Facebook's going through this right now, people have a great idea, and instead of sitting down and discussing it and looking through, looking for unintended consequences or other perspectives, they just execute the plan, the great idea. And so that's kind of going to target practice and saying, hey, I'm going to shoot this gun, and you just fire it, and you don't aim. Conversation is the aiming part of our process.
Actually, I like that. I haven't heard it put that way before. Conversation is how you aim. Because what you're saying is that you give some sort of direction. Folks, we're speaking to Debilyn Molineaux, former president of Coffee Party USA, current principal at Living Room Conversations, and the co-founder of Bridge Alliance. People tell me I work too much. I mean, I don't know. If they see what you do, they'll probably freak out. But and folks, if you're just joining us, please remember to go ahead on Facebook and share this show immediately. This is stuff that we want other people listening to. This is stuff that will make a difference. Slowly, it plants seeds, and we don't want fast action. We want seeds planted. You plant a seed on good soil, it'll grow. You get something done fast, it's a weed, and the weed kind of dies out. Okay, Debilyn, I want to really start addressing this chaos that you're talking about. Explain to me first, what do you mean by we are in a state of chaos in the country?
So chaos is defined by the lack of predictability. And I think up until, probably for the last 40 to maybe 70 years, we've had a society where our old social agreements were in place. And we made a few modifications along the way, but in general, we knew how government worked, we knew what services we could expect, we knew what our taxes were going to be, everything was kind of predictable. And we had a social agreement, social norms, through which all of this happened. And we're entering a period of time where, President Trump has just kind of blown the lid off of what's normal, and is not following what has been the social norms in Washington, D.C. for sure, via social media, secondly. And there is a lack of predictability now in our society because we never know what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. There's no boredom right now. There's just a lack of predictability.
Now, according, I don't want to give the ending of your paper out here, but you actually define that these different assumptions, and you talk about our chaos has to do with authoritarianism. And you've actually said, go ahead.
Yeah, you want to go through my list of assumptions? So
yes, I do.
About how we need chaos right now, based on the following assumptions. The first one is that authoritarian is on the rise globally. Part of that is because there's this lack of predictability, and people think a strong leader is going to bring back predictability in their lives. The second is that we've actually elected an authoritarian leader in the United States. Some people think that was Obama. Some people think it's Trump.
Let me stop you right there. Because there's always people can think or choose to believe certain things. Now, you just in your document, I don't think you mentioned Obama as one.
This came as feedback on my article from one of my financial conservative partners.
And I would love you to explain that because, as a progressive myself, I know you are somewhere in the middle or whatever. I've always wanted to know the thinking process that made anyone believe versus Trump, President Obama as an authoritarian or as an authoritarian.
So for folks who and this is not necessarily from Trump supporters. I just needed to verify that. This is just from people who are more conservative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The perspective that I have heard conveyed to me is that Obama went around Congress, used executive orders, and put a lot of judges in place that expanded the role of government instead of contracted it.
Okay.
In our society. And from a conservative perspective, any expansion of government is increasing authoritarianism because we're looking to the state. So now what I do with my progressive friends in regards to President Trump is that he is rescinding orders for things that help people, help the common people, and that Congress was dysfunctional. That's why Obama did what he did, because Congress was just obstructing. I see the same claim being made now by progressives towards President Trump that when things can't get done through Congress, he's just doing executive orders. And he's also putting judges in place now that are going to restrict the rights of people by rolling back regulations and things like that from that are going to be corporate friendly.
Right.
That's going to be less government intrusive, less regulation, and it's going to hurt people. So it's kind of this balance, if you will, of what is an authoritarian. But my assumption is that as we swing on this pendulum back and forth, people are going to be their own authoritarian to make them feel safe. My conservative friends feel safer and more predictable. The future is more predictable with Trump in office based on his policy, not on his action, not on his Twitter feed, but based on what he's actually doing.
Right.
And my progressive friends are the ones who are very anxious and freaking out.
Amazing. I want to continue with your list, but I want to remind folks that we're speaking with Debilyn Molineaux, former president of Coffee Party USA, founder and principal at Living Room Conversations, and the co-founder of Bridge Alliance. Folks, for those of you that are just coming on to the show, if you're watching the show through Facebook Live, please remember the first thing I'd like you to do is share the show. Make sure that this information gets throughout the Facebook sphere. For those that are listening on Blog Talk Radio, this is a call-in show as well. If you'd like to ask Debilyn or Pearce any questions specifically, you can call 646-716-5812. Again, that is 646-716-5812. Okay, Debilyn, the third item on your list was about social norms. Why don't you expand on that?
Yeah, we talked about that just a little bit. There have been rules around, like, don't use the nuclear option in the Senate to break the filibuster on judicial appointments. That's gone. There are standards that the president is not following about, and the Senate for that matter. There are kind of like these gentlemen's agreements that have held us together for the last 70 years that are now like out the window. So social norms and how government is working is just being challenged. He's coming in and rescinding all the executive orders from the previous administration. So it's creating this larger pendulum swing that we have seen in the past. The other assumption that I have is that micro-targeting is being used to both instill fear, to depress voters, and to sow division within our country.
Explain micro-targeting, because I'll tell you, when I read your article the first time, I had to do a double take when I noticed that you included micro-targeting in the list. I hadn't first qualified that in that manner, just because just about every politician uses it. Just Trump, I think, corrupted it.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a difference, I think, between using micro-targeting to find people who support you and using micro-targeting to make people hate the other person more.
Now that is a clarification I think that I got. In other words, micro-targeting, there's micro-targeting to ask your particular supporters, please go vote. I'm not going to micro-target Trump supporter, I'll micro-target Hillary supporter to go out. But I think what you're saying is they micro-targeted a group of folks that either have them vote or activate themselves against someone. And, so, yeah, go ahead and continue. But it took me a while before I got that.
The microtargeting has been around for decades. It's not,
Right.
It's nothing new.
Right.
But the way it was used in a particularly harmful way to our civil society because of the demonization. It wasn't just about finding more people to support Trump. It was really about finding people to make them hate Hillary more. That's
But
what happened in the last one.
Is there a way, and I've racked my brain on issues like this. There's a lot of things that were done in this election that I consider immoral and unethical, but I don't know if it could ever be made illegal.
Right.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Social norms.
Exactly. I guess you're absolutely right. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Social norms. So the other assumptions that I have is that everyone in the U.S. was impacted by this micro-targeting and disinformation. Everyone. I also assume that most of us are too proud to admit that we were impacted by disinformation. We think we're too smart. And because we think we're too smart and we're not willing to look at how propaganda or disinformation may have impacted us personally, it is in use.
Okay, now there's something that I think bears some explaining, and I have it in my head, but I'd like you to do on it. And here's what you say. Why would we as a country vote for an unpredictable future, i.e. the current president? I mean, you're saying that we don't want to admit that we were micro-targeted and influenced by such, but then at the same time, are you saying that we consciously voted for an unpredictable future? Kind of, dissect that for me.
What I'm saying is that half of our country thought that the unpredictable future was better than a continuation on our current path. So in other words, half of the country was already disenfranchised to the point where the unknown, the unpredictability, was better than the predicted future.
Okay, now that they know, and folks, if you're listening and you're just coming on, please remember to go ahead and share the program on Facebook so that we can have more people watching and seeing it in real time and otherwise. Now, so you're saying that the folks thought just maybe chaos would be better than status quo. Now that, go ahead. Did I get that right?
Yes and no. So there was people who thought chaos would be better than status quo, and there was people who really thought that the status quo was corrupt. I mean, it's not like Trump brought all the corruption with him to Washington, D.C.
It was already there.
It was already there, but it was hidden.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that I know that voted for a change. And they didn't care what the change was because the predicted path that we were on was leading to more decay and corruption anyway.
Right. And
So
now
it's like pulling the Band-Aid off really fast, and it hurts like hell.
yeah, it pulls the scab along with it. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Now I get that. The thing about it is now that they've effected that, and that we really have, now that they've seen what chaos looks like, the question is, do you think they can live with it? Meaning the populace, can they live with it, or are we in for another whole SWAT change again?
So I don't really have a crystal ball. What I see is that we need to figure out what our bonds are with each other. We need to, faster we come up with new social norms and a new social contract for our country and perhaps the world, the sooner chaos will subside. We will have a more predictable future again. But that's not going to happen unless we actually develop bonds of trust and affection with each other, and just sit down and decide consciously what it is we want. We know, a lot of us know that we don't want chaos, but we don't know what we want. And that's something that being in conversation with people who are different from me helps me to figure out what we all want together. And that's where the new social contract is going to come from.
But
How much suffering do we have to do before we get there? I don't know.
Well, I was speaking to a professor yesterday in Starbucks, and he said, and I told him, when you come on my program, you can't say it on an air, right? He just said things have to go completely to what, and people get completely screwed before they make a change. And what I told him is I was more optimistic, and one of the reasons I spent the time, the time and the energy to do what I do, and I imagine the same for you, at the at the detriment of our personal economies.
I know you used to be a software developer.
Yes, you know, and the thing about it, it was going fine. I just said it was just that time, and it was like, to hell with it. We have to save the country. And then it's like, oh yeah, but you kind of have to save yourself too. But you know, but Debilyn, here's the thing. My concern with what you are doing, with what we are doing, with what Pearce is doing, and we're going to bring Pearce in a little bit, with all these forces who benefit from chaos. As you know, the reason healthcare is chaotic is because a lot of money can be made in healthcare that way. The reason why the stock market is chaotic is because there's a lot of money that you can make on chaos. If there are no fixed rules or fixed path, there's always that person that can weasel in and out to make more profit. It is beneficial for a whole lot of people to have women against men, Latinos against blacks, blacks against whites, all that good. I mean, it is for the benefit of many to continue that. And when I'm at Starbucks talking to folks or whatever, we supersede that. We go beyond that because we converse, because we talk. But that is so difficult to do throughout the country en masse. We tried it with Republicans and Democrats, bringing 10 together in each spot, and we got some good results, and now we're trying to go further. How are we going to somehow replicate that en masse?
Well, this gets back to the fractal geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out, and this is where work that Pearce is doing, and he's got 60 organizations as part of the first project, and you know, I mean, there's folks doing this all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really figuring out what. So part of chaos, I have to go back and explain chaos theory a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So chaos theory is actually this pendulum swing between order and chaos, but it's within a set structure.
Set of boundaries.
Chaos never exceeds the boundaries of whatever the structure is. For us, it's society. So chaos will never, you know, we will always have society.
Mm-hmm.
So within chaos theory, one of the reasons it's so challenging to study is because it's a whole system. Chaos theory includes a whole system in which there are individual actors or participants like us that have autonomy and can have free will to do what they will. Each one of these participants or free agents, if you will, inside the larger system called society can impact the whole society. This is, they refer to this scientifically as the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through the use of strange attractors. So like you start doing something, a little something over here, and it takes on the fractal element of like, oh, I really think that sounds like fun. I'm going to go talk to somebody who's different than me. That sounds like a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, we get all these people doing it across the country where we're having either one-on-one or small group conversations, expanding our minds, being curious, finding out we have all the stuff in common. And all of a sudden, the old divisive tactics that we have been, the disinformation campaigns don't work anymore. The micro-targeting doesn't work anymore. We're going to create a whole new society based upon our human bonds so that the sociopathic tendencies of the current system no longer apply.
Now, and how do we, I know you said, you know, we do this in a fractal manner, and that's how we're going to expand. And what I find, it is interesting because a lot of what you've said, I've sort of insinuated to a person I met at my office, Starbucks, and and this is a guy from Madrid, from Spain, and he's a naturalized U.S. citizen, and he's working on his PhD, and he sat down with me, and we were talking, and he said, Egberto, let me ask you a question. Here's a reality. Why will anybody listen to you? And I'm like, because I'm telling the truth, because I am explaining myself. He says, you are having, look at you, you're sitting down here, you bought yourself a venti coffee while you're doing your work and while you have all these great ideas. And you know what? I love you for that. But it's not real. Everybody wants to have a dominant something on top of them. Everybody wants to, they don't believe in the things that somehow things can be as utopian as you believe. So the reason I brought that up is to ask, how do you make people believe that it could be different and then invest in making it different?
Yeah. Well, this gets back to that, the autonomy of the individual actors within the larger system. There has to be room for individuals, like my mother, who really all she's interested in doing is enjoying her retirement and living her life. And this whole political thing is just like not interesting to her at all.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be room within our social structure for those folks who don't want to participate in group dynamics. They're part of the individual actors. They're part of the system.
Wait, I don't know if I understood you correctly. You're saying you have to leave space for those who don't give a damn, pretty much? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Heard clearly. Continue.
And the other part of it is that, we're going to have some outliers. And there's, and this is not having to do anything with the article, but we don't ever know when somebody is an outlier is going to be bringing the next new thing that's helpful or the next new thing that's dangerous. And so there needs to be room also for outliers, for people who don't quite fit in and have ideas that don't fit in to what our current social norms are, because it's from those outliers that we can either create a new future that's wonderful or we can destroy it. And discerning the difference is, and again, requires conversation. We have to talk to each other about what's possible with that outlier idea.
Well, I tell you what, I have a link to your paper from the Politics Done Right website, as well as from the post that we have for the show. But I want to read your last paragraph and last sentence because I think it's important. Rather than fear chaos, I now see chaos as part of natural order. Our old system was stagnating and actively breaking down. Our social constructs is up for renewal. We need to accept our individual responsibility with awareness of the whole system in which we live. Let's commit our sacred honor to each other in pursuit of a more perfect union. It could not have been closed any better. Personal responsibility, acknowledge the whole, do something about it. I mean, I love the way that closes because, like you said, in as much as at times you are fearful, you're optimistic.
Always.
And right now, what I want to do is bring into the conversation El Señor, and I want to make sure I get the name right this time. Pearce Godwin, founder of Listen First Project. Pearce, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Egberto. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So, Pearce, before we get started, because everybody knows Debilyn, this is the third time that Debilyn's been on Politics Done Right, and she's been with Coffee Party and all these things. But you know what? We don't know you. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. More than happy to. I am a native of North Carolina, and over the last few years, developed myself the same kind of passion and mission that Debilyn and so many of our mutual friends have in wanting to bridge these divides that are so horribly tearing our nation and our society apart. My personal story is that it started with an essay written in Africa in 2013 that was much more viral than I anticipated. And the insight there was that this really simple kind of concept of listening first to understand the other, of moving beyond slander and seeking common ground, is something that resonates coast to coast. It's nothing brilliant, it's nothing terribly innovative, but the idea that we don't have to demagogue our neighbors just because they see the world differently, that maybe we can take a minute and gain a new respect and an understanding for those with whom we disagree, and find some reparation in society as a result of that. And so out of that original essay and over the last few years, Listen First Project has grown to encourage conversations that prioritize understanding the other. And in that, we inspire hope, I hope, for a stronger society, one Listen First pledge, and conversation at a time. Egberto, I've heard you mention a number of the amazing, conversation methods that are out there, living room conversations and others. And we talk about a listen first conversation. That is any conversation that prioritizes understanding the other. So if you look on the page, listenfirstproject.org, and look at the conversations, you'll see all of our friends who have their particular methods and tremendous innovative ways of facilitating these conversations, as well as tips for that kind of conversation. And the pledge, as we start talking about National Week of Conversation, is the entry point and the theme of NWOC, which was Debilyn's brainchild, and we'll get into that. But that I will listen first to understand and consider your views, Egberto, before I share my own. That I'll prioritize respect and understanding in conversation and encourage others to do the same. And that's what we're all working together, as Debilyn mentioned, over 60 organizations now as part of this Listen First Coalition, all hoping to row in the same direction and create this mass movement to mend the frayed fabric of America and bridge divides one conversation at a time.
That's the fractal geometry piece. Pearce is doing that for us.
That is great. Let me tell you something, Pearce, because first of all, I'm glad that we're doing this. I'm glad that we're having the conversations, and what Debilyn and yourself have put together. I imagine you were part of putting together the National Week of Conversation as well, or is that? I know it's Debilyn's brainchild, but I imagine you were part of the project as well.
Yes.
Now, what?
It is. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
Yeah, as a little bit of background, and Debilyn can share more. It was her brainchild, and she convened about 20 leaders from across the country in Chicago this past October. I was honored to be one of those, and we talked about this idea, and there was so much energy in the room, so much desire to see it happen. And indeed, at this point, you have two of the three co-directors of the National Week of Conversation on your show right now. So we have kind of run with that banner and are so humbled by the tremendous support. Now over 75 organizations across the country who want to be a part of this National Week.
Well,
we just peaked 80 today, Pearce, FYI.
Oh, 80. Man,
Yeah.
need to update that talking point. It is growing by the hour, Egberto.
Well, look, let me tell you, I think that is great. And, I hope one of the things you're pushing, because there's something that I am a left-wing, blowhard liberal who talks a lot. And Debilyn can tell you, we go way back to 2010, I believe, Debilyn. And the thing about it is, over time, working with our family at Coffee Party and, talking to folks like Debilyn, who has always been a moderating force in our organization, created a method of connecting with people, doing exactly that, a hell of a lot of listening. And I hope one of the things that you guys put out there when we're doing these things is, it is easy to sit back and just let somebody talk, waiting to come back with your own points. Even if there's simulated listening,
yes,
and then there is hearing, or I don't know if it's simulated hearing and then there's listening. Whichever one is right, I don't know.
Well, there's authentic or deep listening, which means that you're actually present and paying attention to what the other person is saying, and doing so with an empathetic ear, rather than how we usually listen, which is to respond or to debate it in our head or just to be distracted. Like, I have another idea that's more interesting to me. I'm going to pretend.
Right, and I think that in these conversations, I hope that is something that we convey, because a lot of people are going to come to this and say, yes, we want to talk, yes, we want to listen. I've noticed that with a whole lot. And Pearce, I imagine you're a conservative. Is that correct?
I do come from a conservative Republican background.
Let me tell you why I asked.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you why I asked that, because we've been trying to interact here, and one of the things that I try to get away from is for folks just getting ready to do their talking points, and that is we had a group of 10 conservatives, 10 liberals get together, 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans get together, and finally kind of broke through that and had people listen to each other. But what was interesting in the beginning, and this was more so on the side, I guess the pro-Trump side, is that we found that people, while we're trying, and believe it or not, I wanted them to do that so badly. They were hitting on specific liberals at that time, which sort of stunted the conversation initially, right? The reason I really wanted that to happen is because I wanted for the folks that, let's say, are on the left seeing that, to not clam up. And the way the conversation went with our moderator is they made sure that those, I don't want to call them attacked but it was sort of an attack, made sure that those weren't the things that we concentrated on, but we concentrated on the issue behind the attack. And believe it or not, in doing so, that moderator was very good at the at this event. We were able to get some common ground, common points, and even though we're never going to agree on things like big government, small government, etc., the things that matter to people on an everyday basis got done. So I am hoping, given y'all's skills, that is where these different conversations will be leading. And what I mean is that there's assistance to folks in how to do that, because it's not an easy thing to moderate these conversations in such a manner that people start, what is the kind of listening you call it, Debilyn? Authentic listening?
Authentic listening or deep listening.
Deep listening. So go ahead and talk to me more about that, Pearce.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're speaking directly, Egberto, to the fifth of the top 10 tips for a listen first conversation. And whenever I speak, I always have to stop at this one and have a little moment of confession, because it is be present and curious rather than thinking of how to respond. And I could probably count on one hand the number of times I have succeeded at my own tips there. But we already talked about what that pledge is, and some of these you'll recognize as we pull the greatest hits from living room conversations and others. But in how to have this listen first conversation, a conversation that prioritizes understanding the other, some of the tips we share on listenfirstproject.org are to come with an open mind, ready to learn and grow. Just like you said, that humility, that openness and grace for one another. Listen to others as you want them to listen to you. So, Egberto, I grew up in the Bible Belt down in North Carolina. My mom and dad always taught me the golden rule, and I think it applies well to this context of conversation as well. Listen to others as you want them to listen to you. Listen to and consider others' views before sharing your own. Allow others the courtesy of silence while they are speaking. We already talked about not just thinking about how to respond. Maintain a calm and respectful tone when speaking and a relaxed posture when listening. You get into the physical element, all those facial cues, all that good stuff. And so have that, free of distractions, put that cell phone down, physically engage with eye contact and a relatively neutral expression. Some really nice tangible tips that Debilyn and others have shared is to restate what you heard said to clarify understanding. And in that, use I statements. So
I love that.
Egberto, I can't believe you just said this. No, Egberto, what I heard you say was, or the way I understood your position is, that puts it more on ourselves and can hopefully diminish some of those attacks you talked about. Ask thoughtful and respectful questions, free from judgment, assumption, or bias. And then finally, and this is probably my favorite, and it's one you just touched on, Egberto, seek to discover common interest and areas of agreement by focusing more on the why than the what, more on the personal experience than the position. And I think that's exactly what you were just speaking to, because what Debilyn and I talk about all the time at all hours of the night, much to her chagrin, increasingly in America today, we've gotten to the point, Egberto, where I don't just disagree with you, right? I distrust, I dislike, I even despise you because you see the world differently. And we've seen in polling that 75% of Americans say this problem has reached a crisis level. Meanwhile, the historians are echoing Debilyn and saying our country hasn't been this divided since the 1850s. Well, that was preceded a little thing we call the Civil War. A healthy and vibrant society can't survive, we feel strongly, amidst such attacks on the humanity of our fellow Americans. And that's the situation that is truly chaos that Debilyn created. And then just a final hopeful note as we talk more about National Week of Conversation. Our fervent belief is that even in today's hyperpolarized and tribal society, we can turn the tide of rising rancor and deepening division by starting these new conversations, the conversations we're talking about here, ones that bridge divides, move from, as we like to say, us versus them, which is our all too common posture these days, to me and you, to two individuals having a conversation. And the hope in National Week of Conversation and Listen First in Charlottesville, where I am today, is that each person who listens first to understand the other tips those scales toward a stronger future for our nation, and that in the conversations, and as you talked about, Egberto, that personal connection, the relationships that conversation builds, that's where we see hope for mending the frayed fabric of America, and look forward to National Week of Conversation, April 20th through 28th, being a big, unprecedented step in that direction.
Oh man, you have that down so well, Pearce. I mean, I mean, we could make a commercial out of that right away and get probably double the amount of people participating. but beforehand, for those people who are, I mean, there are some people talking about an echo on that they're hearing an echo on the Facebook Live. I'm so sorry about that. I'll have to figure out that technical difficulty at another time. I don't know what that is at this point in time, so we'll work on that going forward. Now, with regards to what Pearce said, Pearce, let me tell you, all of that is beautiful. All of that sounds good. I hope that is what gets effected. When I think it starts at 20. What again?
April 20th to the 28th.
April.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I don't want anybody to get out their calculator, because you'll realize we cheated and it's 9 days. But
you cheated.
It's the 28th.
Okay, yeah. In other words, you get the 5 days and you get the 2 days on each side. I think that passed muster. Okay, now I want to ask the serious question here now, okay? Because one of the issues that I have with a lot of these groups, and because you are involved and because Debilyn is involved, I can't hit you up the way I hit up my liberal groups when I tell them stop being somewhat too elitist and not get into all the different areas in this country. And I think Debilyn kind of have an idea of where I'm going right now, and that is, right now, a lot of these groups like yours, Pearce, like what Debilyn is doing, is very top heavy with white people. And what I mean by that is a country has a whole lot of people in it, right? And somehow you don't get a chance to reach these other people. My question to you, and I know, look, I'm not questioning your work or anything like that. I'm saying, what kind of efforts, and if it's just Debilyn I'm talking to, Debilyn is going to say, well, hell, Egberto, you need to go out there and help do some work to get that done. But to you, I'm saying, of all these groups out there, how are you best trying to make sure that your groups don't only look like a Trump group, but like, and sorry for saying that, Mr. Conservative, but you're my friend anyway. But
yes, sir.
No, Debilyn can tell you. I live amongst all conservatives. That's who I hang with. But what are you doing to really engage all the folks, Pearce? This is look, for what we want to do.
You should let him tell you about what he's done in Charlottesville.
Okay, tell me what you've done in Charlottesville.
Thank you, Debilyn. Egberto, what you raised could not be more important. I think of it as a mission-critical issue, whether it is across racial lines or religious lines or ideological lines, political lines, any lines you want to throw out there. And God knows we could talk for an hour about the various fractures across society. But it is mission-critical to everything we are doing here, everything we're talking about, to National Week of Conversation, that we have the broadest possible spectrum of diversity at the table. And as Debilyn mentioned, in addition to National Week of Conversations, the other initiative I'm working on right now as part of that is an event in Charlottesville. Of course, we all saw what transpired in Charlottesville this past August, and we were all horrified by those events. And out of that, I had a couple of inclinations. One was to quit my job and spend all my time with Debilyn, and the other was to have an event in Charlottesville at the appropriate time. And so since those events last August, I've spent a tremendous amount of time here in Charlottesville, being from a few hours away outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, and have worked hard with the partnership of many other people to do exactly what you just described, Egberto, to get beyond what I was just talking to the city manager a moment ago. Not just the people I can find on the website, right? Not just the leaders of the city, not just the leaders of the university, but really the community. And a lot of times in doing that, to your point, you find a greater diversity racially, socioeconomically, educationally, and in many other ways. So to be honest with you, and what I have certainly found is that it requires a lot of interpersonal relationship building on the ground. So it's almost circular, right? Specifically, we're having this event for the first weekend of National Week of Conversation here that Debilyn and dozens of other leaders from across the country and leaders from across the broad spectrum in Charlottesville will be a part of. Listen First in Charlottesville. In order for that to be successful, in order for National Week of Conversation to be successful, we have to start building relationships in order to have people in the room to build relationships and bridge divides. So it really feeds upon itself, but I have learned and had my eyes open, frankly, even wider to just how difficult it is, and I've gotten some wonderful feedback from those in Charlottesville about the many legitimate reasons that some communities, some types of people are more or less inclined to participate in some of these conversations, but without them, we're not getting anything done. If we're talking to people who look like us and think like us, we're not making any progress, frankly, towards mending the frayed fabric of society and bridging those divides. So, while I have found here in Charlottesville that those horrific events of last summer continue to have a profound personal impact, and the 24-hour news cycle, that is old news nationally. It's not here. It is very, very raw. In addition to that, I feel like that epitomized the depth of our division that is affecting communities coast to coast, mine and yours. We saw their marches escalate to murder, our incivility become literal casualties and killing of one another because of that effective polarization we spoke about earlier. So have been deeply humbled by the support here locally, and thrilled to have Debilyn and so many others coming to be a part of that weekend. But it has really required, just as a microcosm of our larger effort, countless, over 100 now, conversations with local leaders and getting beyond what people in Charlottesville, we talk about the usual suspects. And you're absolutely right. A lot of times those usual suspects might be white, they might be privileged, but we have to truly represent the whole beautiful diversity of America, of Charlottesville, of every community, in order to bring our society forward in a healthy direction. And to Debilyn's point, not just have the conversation, which in and of itself is a tremendous action and a tremendous benefit, but also to use that conversation to further whatever objective and agenda I may personally have. I have this conversation in Charlottesville just a few minutes ago, and in almost every conversation, hey, a lot of us, Pearce, are tired of talking. We're tired of conversation. We want action. And I totally understand that. I also think that whatever my specific agenda and passionate cause is, I will be more effective and you will be more effective as we better understand the other people in the community, as we better understand even our opposition to that end, so that in that we can not only bridge divides, but can make ourselves more effective in building broader coalitions towards the change that we see needs to occur.
Hey, Pearce, it looked like you're going to be somebody running for elective office pretty soon. Actually, it's a real question.
I'm having a lot more fun. I'm having a lot more fun with Debilyn.
The reason I had to say that is because, first of all, I agree with everything that you're saying, and we need leaders out there who are saying those kinds of things, and specifically, and please take this with the right heart that I'm saying it, specifically, we need people on your side of the hand, if you will, who actually think like that and will execute like that. Because I am one who believe we need both poles. In other words, both poles is what keeps us honest. And I think that is so important.
Yeah.
And but again, we don't have a lot of people on your side speaking like that, and that's important. And actually, to put it bluntly, it's part of your responsibility to make sure that more of them speak that way.
Yes, as Debilyn knows, I have taken that as somewhat of a personal mission, because for a lot of reasons that we don't have time for and don't fully understand, that this space does tend to resonate more naturally with a liberal mindset. And as someone who is from a conservative and Republican background, I have taken the mantle for the crowd we have here, and as a token conservative, to ensure that segment of society, whether it be the half of society or the 40% who support the president, whatever it may be, if we're having a conversation with only 60% of the country, we're not going to accomplish what any of us want to accomplish. So
exactly.
Thanks for the further pressure, Egberto, and we're going to see.
Well, you think that is pressure? One of my listeners, and most of them don't call in. Most of them speak on Facebook Live, and this one is from Bruce Pollard, a friend of mine as well. But I have to ask it because it's my passion, and no matter what your answer is, don't worry, I still love you, brother. But the question was, ask how he stands on healthcare, because I think you're sounding so good that you have some of my liberals like, damn, then let's hear what he has to say about healthcare. So you better tell me something about healthcare, and it better be good.
That's hilarious. Egberto, Debilyn knows I try to be as transparent as they come, but wearing my Listen First Project hat, it is to our point about resonating with the widest possible community. I cannot take any position on any issue, and I don't mean for that to be some sort of cop out. But in all seriousness, suppose I say I want universal health care, single payer. Mm-hmm. Great, a lot of people will be happy. The other half of the people will never listen to the message that Debilyn and I are trying to promote, and won't show up for National Week of Conversation.
You know what? I'll give you that.
We'd have the opposite problem. So I am going to try to remain disciplined, and for the greater good, encourage that conversation among people who are passionate on every side of that healthcare issue.
Bruce says,
an important one, and I'm sorry for the lack of hands.
Pearce. Bruce says, cop out for sure. Yeah. I want to tell Bruce, my good friend, I want to say, because of what we're trying to do on April 20th, I'm going to give Brother Pearce his cop out, no problem whatsoever. But guess what, Brother Pearce? I'm coming back for you. I am going to want you on my show again, okay?
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, but Debilyn is waving at me. Debilyn wants to come in. Come on in, Debilyn.
I know. Well, I'm going to let Pearce off the hook here, but you can see why he's so much fun to work with.
Yes.
But I want to make sure that everybody gets who wants to participate in the National Week of Conversation knows how to do so.
Right. Go ahead and let us know. Yes, please do, because we only have about 3 minutes.
That's why I was waving frantically at you. So the website is nationalweekofconversation.org. We are looking for people to sign up to participate. There's 37 events listed right now across the country. We are also looking for people to host events, and that can be online or in person. The library system has been contacted, and there's several libraries across the country that are hosting events. We know about Boston, Kansas City, and Vancouver, Washington so far. But if you're connected in with the library, I would say they have great spaces if you want to host a public event. And then listed on our calendar so other people can find you. We also have a Facebook page and a Twitter feed. It's all National Week of Conversation. And that's singular, National Week of Conversation.
What I will do, Debilyn, is because let's see, Pearce. Oh, thank you, Pearce. Pearce went on to the page, and Pearce, you're so good, brother. You're so good, because Mike Cisak just asked.
I do what I can.
Yes, Mike Cisak just asked, and by the way, Mike Cisak is one of my most prolific conservative listeners. He's here for every show, 5 days a week. So, I love Mike Cisak. He finally called in, and we had a great conversation, right, Mike? Anyhow. But yes, folks, look, we're coming to the close of the show, and I want to thank Pearce Godwin, and I want to thank Debilyn Molineaux for coming to the show and talk about these conversations that's going to be held starting on April 20th, and the link is on the site. I will add the link to the blog post. I didn't do that. That was failure on. It was my failure not to have thought to put these links into the blog, so I'll do that. But anyhow, Pearce, thank you so kindly for having been to the den.
Thank you, Egberto. It's been a pleasure.
So you have a wonderful day. And look, I am serious. I don't have all your contact info, but sometime I'm going to be contacting Debilyn and say, Debilyn, I want to have a one-on-one with Brother Pearce. Is that okay?
Of course, I'd be honored.
All right, thank you very kindly for being here, my friend. And Debilyn Molineaux, once again, thank you very much for your insight. I'm pretty sure your brainchild, these conversations are going to be a full and entire success. You have a wonderful day, my friend.
Thanks, Egberto. Glad
All
to
right,
be here.
great. Actually, I got to go close out my show now. We're telling folks how to get some more info. So thank you so kindly, Debilyn. You have a wonderful day. All right, folks, thank you so kindly for listening to Politics Done Right. You know where we're going to now. This is the Progressive Show. We need to make sure that we keep all our progressive shows on air, so don't you ever forget to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Become a member of our team. This is what we are going to do to make sure that, you notice we bring you voices from all over. We bring you voices from the right, we bring you voices on the left, we bring you voices in the middle, and of course we bring you Debilyn's voice. That is, oh, Debilyn must be still here. Because you don't know where her voice is. Anyhow, folks, so go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Consider subscribing to our show. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys have a wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.